career. But to answer your question, before I started so far back that I don't even remember not liking football.
Mm. Hmm.
Wow. So when you look at this upcoming college season, like obviously starting today, do you expect them to like play a whole season, or do you see it stopping at any point? Like, how do you see the whole thing playing out with the pandemic going on?
Well, I mean, I think there's possibilities on each side that it could be where the season does stop, or the season can continue. So I really can't say a prediction, give you a prediction, but so far, I mean, so far, it's gone pretty smoothly.
Yeah,
Especially with the Texans and the Chiefs, it's gone pretty good. We just have to kind of wait and see, and hopefully the virus doesn't spread among the football players. But you kind of know it may do that, so hopefully it doesn't put a damper on that because that would be a shame. You got a lot of young men out there, professionals that want to play the game and want to entertain us, and for
Sure.
them not being able to play would be heartbreaking.
definitely, definitely.
Speaking of the Chiefs, they don't need fans to play, man. This team is loaded, and
Yeah.
I have them going back to the Super Bowl, and that's how talented they are. And Patrick Mahomes he's a different cat when it comes to quarterback position. So they don't need the fans in order to win games. I feel like they can win without fans too.
Oh well, yeah, they're pretty much loaded, and I think you saw a sample of what they can do offense, especially just being the first game they scoring like 30 points. You can imagine once they get into the rhythm of it, they could be explosive, and it's a tough team to really match up with on the defensive side of it because they got so many weapons on the outside, and now they added a running back that seems to be ready for this season. So you're just going to have a lot of offense, and especially because the offense, the NFL is really geared toward the offense. Kansas City has another chance to go back and win the Super Bowl. So it'd be interesting to see. You never know. But if they don't have any injuries, especially on the offensive side of it, they got a really great chance of winning it all.
Hmm.
Definitely. What are you expecting out of Tom Brady and the Buccaneers? I know tomorrow they have a pretty tough matchup with the Saints. So does this game set the tone for either team that wins? For the rest of the year. Like, what do you see out of that game tomorrow?
Well, I mean, it's just the first game, so you always have to keep it in perspective. But I'm sure everybody's going to be anxious to see what Tom Brady can do at this advanced age. He got some weapons. I know that one of the guys has a hamstring and he may not be able to play. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a little bit of a knock, but he got some great tight ends, got some good receivers out there, a good running game, and Bruce Arians is a great offensive coordinator. So I imagine them to do some really good things on the offensive side. Defensively, they're good, but it's going to be a task for them. But like I said, you always want to keep that first game, especially in the NFL, in
Sure.
perspective. Wait how the season plays out.
Hmm.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I want to get your back to your career here. So how many offers do you have coming out of high school? What made you let choosing Clemson University?
Honestly, I didn't have a whole lot of offers at all. You got to think back in 1986 to 87. There's no internet. There's no recruiting services. I'm from a very small town in South Carolina.
Hmm.
So in all actuality, the first time I got noticed was by the University of South Carolina. Then Clemson came in a little later, but really those were the only two schools who really recruited me pretty hard. But I think Clemson just did a great job of developing a relationship with me. And then once I went up there, it was all over with. I mean,
Hmm.
the facilities, the atmosphere on campus really drew me in. I felt like it was home. I, the next week, I basically made my announcement that I was going to go to Clemson University, and I think it was a great decision for myself. It really worked out. Sometimes you just have to trust the old gut. And the gut was telling me that Clemson was the place I needed to be, and like I said, it really worked out for me. Probably even more so than I thought it would.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, all the years you played football, who's been your favorite teammate you've ever played with? Like, was there somebody who pushed you harder than other people, or like, and meaning like your pro career, not necessarily like your collegiate career, but like your pro career? Was there anybody who really like you still talk to, stuff like that?
Well, I have to say, the Pittsburgh Steelers because I spent the most time with those guys, 9 years with the Steelers. And we had a linebacker crew with guys like Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green, and Chad Brown. And at one point in time, we were probably considered the best group of linebackers, especially in the 90s. We got voted as the seventh best recruiting core ever played.
Wow.
So you're talking about a bunch of guys who all went to the Pro Bowls, who all play on a very high level. And when you got guys like that, it only motivates you to play on their level. Greg Lloyd was such a alpha man at that time that you had to play on his level because Chad Brown and myself were young guys, and we brought in Kevin Green the same year Chad and I started, and Kevin and Greg really played off each other pretty well. And me and Chad were young guys, but we were athletic, and you knew we were going to be good. By that second year playing together, man, we pushed each other to continue to be the very best. And I had guys like Rod Woodson,
Hmm.
Carnell Lay, Darren Perry, and Damani Dawson on the other side that really they gave me great examples of how to be a professional.
Wow.
And so for me, just being in Pittsburgh and the history of the linebackers, it sets a pretty high bar. And you want to be able to be with, to call yourself one of the greats that
Yeah.
played on that team. So I would have to say Pittsburgh was probably my fondest place. And most of the guys that I really looked up to were from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to your Clemson career, though, what was it like playing for Clemson University? Obviously, they're one of the top colleges in college football, and this generation with Dabo Swinney, he's a hell of a coach. But when you were playing, what was it like playing for that team, and what did you learn to become a better football player? And the follow up question here, before after you answer the Clemson one, what was it like getting drafted by Pittsburgh, and then how grateful are you that they gave you the opportunity to start your career?
Yeah, sure. Well, with Clemson was a top program when I went to Clemson also. Danny Ford was a coach. He won a national championships in the decade of the 80s. It was tough. It really was. We were a really tough physical team. We were a team that liked to run the ball, and we were a team that really was defensive minded.
Hmm.
So to be able to get out there and to play for those guys, it was an honor. It really was because you knew you had to earn it. You really did. I mean, our practices were legendary amongst the pro scouts. They would all come line up and watch us practice because we got after it, and we had to get after it because our coach was one of those Bear Bryant disciples, and we had no other choice. So it was tough, but it was definitely rewarding. We won a whole lot of games. I actually played in the Gator Bowl. We played in the Gator Bowl, and I actually won the MVP playing against a guy named Major Harris, who was second in the Heisman Trophy that year.
Hmm.
So playing at Clemson was a real big deal, and we played some other teams like Oklahoma, Penn State. We beat those guys. So when you played Clemson, you had to hide the women and children.
Yeah.
We were no joke, man. We got after it. And then being drafted by Pittsburgh Steelers is kind of funny because I remember it being the 38th pick and it was coming on. I went to the bathroom and I was just like, they're gonna pick me, they're gonna pick me, they're gonna pick me. I went to the kitchen table and sat by the telephone because I was convinced that they're gonna call me. Sure enough, they did call me. I got on the phone with a guy named Charles Bailey. He was one of the pro scouts and he knows I'm from a small town, so he's like, "Is there a telephone?" And he said, "Do you guys have cable TV in Lamar, South Carolina?" I was like, "Yeah, man, we got cable TV. Do you have ESPN?" I'm like, "Yeah." You're playing with my emotions, and he finally said, "Hey, man, welcome to the Black and Gold." and I was thrilled. I really was, because that was really the team I wanted to play for.
Right.
I met with Coach Cowher. I met with a lot of their personnel, and that was the team I really wanted to play for. Like I said, I went in that bathroom. I demanded to the universe
Yeah.
that I was going to play for Pittsburgh Steelers. And 9 years later, man, it was a great experience for me. I got to play in the Super Bowl. I got to play with some great players.
Hmm.
I got to be selected to the Pro Bowls. Had a fantastic career there, and I'm just really grateful that they drafted me and they gave me the opportunity that they did. Because in the NFL draft, you just never know. And a lot of times, I tell people you have to be fortunate. You have to be fortunate to go on the right team, the right position, right coaches. It just has to, everything has to really fit in for you to have a long career, because the average career is only 3 years. So I was blessed to have a career that spanned over 11 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. So kind of, with your Clemson career too, a lot of kids get to play, college football at the D1 level, stuff like that. But it almost seems like you were pretty fortunate to, play in your own backyard in South Carolina. So did you ever have like that hometown hero type of feel? And then the thing about it is, you get to go to the next level and play too. So I'm sure you had lots of family and friends you grew up around who, saw you play as a youngster. They saw you play in college. They see you play at the next level. So like when you go back to your hometown, like how does it feel to you? Do you feel like a star? Like what's the feel of that?
Well, my approach was I never felt like a star or anything like that. I never really felt that way. It's kind of funny because other people perceive you as that way. When when after, especially after my NFL career or
Mm-hmm.
during my NFL career, I would always go home,
Yeah.
and I would spend a great deal of time with my family and especially my parents' home. So I would stay there during the off season and just
Mm-hmm.
work out at a local high school and just be around. And
Yeah.
I think most people would probably tell you that I was pretty normal for
Mm-hmm.
a guy who played in the NFL, and especially one of the first to go from the small hometown to a big level like that. But
Yeah.
I felt like I was down to earth. My family, we are kind of humble people. So,
Mm-hmm.
no, that's how I always approach it. I knew I was a good football player and I enjoyed playing and I had confidence about that.
Yeah.
But we were really always kind of taught you treat people the way you want to be treated, and you respect other people. You don't burn bridges. So, although maybe other people saw me in that light, I really never saw myself that way. And I just try to conduct myself as a friendly human being.
It's good. It's good. I like that. Yeah.
So now getting to your Pittsburgh career, what was it like playing for a legend like legend with Rod Woodson and getting to learn from him as a teammate? Obviously, he's a goat too, and but what was it like playing with him?
Oh yeah, Rod was amazing. I thought that when I was in college, I thought Darnell Wolford was the best athlete I ever saw in my life until I got to Pittsburgh. And you see so many great athletes, but
Yeah.
Rod Woodson was extremely special. He was a guy that was naturally gifted, actually a very big cornerback,
Hmm.
around 6'2". He could run like the wind. He was on the track team at Purdue. And also, he was extremely smart player, but a guy who would take some risks and he would gamble sometimes. But I seen him through the time he won the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, and it was fantastic. I never saw a guy so versatile in my life. Not only could he cover, but he can rush the passer as well. And he was definitely a guy you looked up to as a young player. I was only going into my second year when I had the privilege to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you could always depend on him. You knew that he was going to make a big play, but also if you didn't play up to his standard, he would kind of let you know about it.
Hmm.
And so you had to kind of buy in. You had to get to a point where I want to make sure that I get Rod Woodson respect. Believe it or not, it's kind of like getting Michael Jordan's respect. You just want him to say hello to you on
Right.
occasions because he's on such a different level that it's crazy. But I think I did earn his respect. But he was like that, and I looked at the Last Dance, and I thought about Rod Woodson and Greg Lloyd, and people talking about how tough Michael Jordan was. They didn't play in the NFL because those guys were no joke. Those guys were men, and if you didn't play, man, you might get in a tussle with them. So
Man,
a guy like Rod Woodson was a pleasure to play with, and I was honored to be his teammate.
Hmm.
cool, cool. Nathan, I don't have any more questions, but I'm gonna hand it over to you. I'm gonna let you finish it up. This is your show, so I'm gonna let you go
Oh,
ahead.
really? Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm gonna let you go ahead.
So speaking of Michael Jordan, I interviewed his former teammate Ethan Thomas when they were both together in Washington, and he said that Ethan said that he had to earn his respect too when he was in
Oh
Washington.
yeah,
And
yeah. When you're on that level and you're trying to really go for being great, you need to pay attention to the ones that are already there.
right,
And when you have great examples like Michael Jordan and Rod Woodson, Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green, Damani Dawson, Jerome Bettis, guys I had on my team that end up being Hall of Famers. One deserves to be a Hall of Famer, but we'll see what happens with that.
hmm,
It only gives you motivation to do better. It really does. And those guys, if they care about you, they're gonna push you because their performance really depends on your performance.
hmm,
And football is such a team game that you really do depend on a guy to your right, to your
right,
left, behind you. So those guys are. If you got a bunch of guys who are not really putting in the energy and the effort to be the very best, then it hurts you. So those guys, in essence, they have to push you so their legacies can be good too. So
right.
that's what I really appreciate about guys like that. They made sure that your effort was on their level.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So after your I mean, obviously, was it tough leaving Pittsburgh, the team that drafted you? Obviously, you played for the Seahawks and the Eagles too, but was it tough leaving Pittsburgh, and what was the experience like playing for Seattle and then Philly?
Well, a lot of times as a football player, you're always thinking about the team and you're always thinking about loyalty to the team.
Right.
You're raised to understand that these guys are your brothers and that you're going into battle with them. Your team, that's your colors, that's your stripes. And playing with Pittsburgh for 9 years, you buy into that message. Not only buy in, you take ownership of that message. But the NFL is a business more so than anything. And a lot of times, teams are going to do what's best for business. It may not be best for your business, or you may feel that way. But they made a move, and and just like pretty much 99% of most players, you're going to go to another team if you play long enough. You're
Hmm.
going to switch a team, no matter how long you've been there. You got a few exceptions, but for the most part, yeah, you're going to be leaving the team. And at first, I was, upset about it. Then I realized and reflect that the Pittsburgh Steelers did give me an opportunity to play for those guys. And I just remember as I was taking my contract from Seattle that talking to Mr. Rooney, talking to Bill Cowher, I let him know that I understood it and that I was grateful for what had happened and, I want to continue those relationships. But I have to tell you, that going to Seattle and going to Philly was great because what you did is you saw it differently. You
Hmm.
saw it from another perspective. You saw it from, especially for me going to the West Coast, that was good for me. It really was. You were around a different culture, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes you need that as a young man. You need to see things differently. It sounds good to be on a team forever, but if guys get an opportunity to go to other teams and they try to make the best of it, it's great. And then when I went to Philly my last year, it was an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. We didn't quite get there, but man, my energy level went back up, playing for another great team. So, in a perspective, it was really good to play for different teams. You get to meet different ways of doing things. It was definitely different from Bill Cowher to Mike Holmgren
Mhm.
to Andy Reid. And I learned a lot from all those coaches and all the assistant coaches that I played for. So for me, although you think coming in as a young person, you want to play for your team forever. You want to get a tattoo that says, you played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that's not a good move because you just never know.
Right.
And so for me, it was great. It really was. I had a great time at Seattle and with Philly. And I was fortunate to play 11 years, man, not to get hurt,
Right.
things of that nature. So for me, it was an outstanding career.
Hmm.
I guess I do have one more question for you.
I
So,
knew he had one.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, there's one
Yeah.
brewing in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yes.
So when you get announced as like a Pro Bowler, like when you hear that, what was your first reaction? Because I mean, obviously that's a very special, accolade to have, and you did it multiple times. So, like, what's the feeling of that?
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a vision that comes true because at any point in time when you're playing a sport or you're in a business or whatever industry that you're in, you want to be the very best.
Right.
And we had some guys like in playing the inside linebacker or middle linebacker, it was really tough to get into the Pro Bowl. And we end up, I had Junior Seau in the AFC.
Hmm.
So it's usually Junior Seau and some other guy.
Yeah.
And for me to make it that year, man, it was amazing. It was a dream come true. And I was like, wow, I finally can say that I'm one of the elite players and not just a good player. For your peers
Mhm.
to vote for you to get there, that's a high honor. That says a
Yeah.
whole lot. That means you got respect that maybe some other guys don't get.
Right.
So for me, it was one of the best days of my life, man. And I remember my sisters making me a cake, saying congratulations to getting to the Pro Bowl. Uh,
Mhm.
it meant a lot to me because I really took the game very seriously and wanted to be on that kind of level. So for me, it was a delight.
Yeah, I know I've always heard people say things like, NBA All-Star Game, NFL Pro Bowl, the guys don't play all serious. But to me, I think it's very impressive. Like I said, you did it multiple times. So that's definitely a great, great honor, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And the cool thing is you get to meet other guys
Right.
that
Yeah.
are on that level, which you normally don't get to meet. As I said before, there wasn't internet, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't Twitter. The world is more global now than it ever been. But back then, there was a separation. You just really didn't know guys.
Mhm.
And then when you go to the Pro Bowl, you get to form some relationships that otherwise you may not have had before, unless they went to your school or
Mhm.
something like that. So to be able to go there and see guys that you competed against, now they're your teammates or they're on the NFC side of things, it was real cool because everybody was together. Everybody's at the same hotel, all the families and that. And I enjoyed it. I really did.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. So before we go further in your career, I gotta bring up this other podcast you should definitely consider. I think he already reached out to Radon Global Kid Media. You should check his page out. He's done over 1,000 interviews. He's only 14 years old, and he's trying to be the first sideline kid reporter. So, what do you think of the idea of having a kid reporter now in all sports?
I think it's amazing. I really do because you get a perspective from a younger person that you may not have all the time, especially being interested in sports, and he probably enjoys the history of it. So that says a lot. And when I was a kid, I knew I understand the sport too, but I didn't quite understand it as much as I do now.
Right.
But to have that perspective, I think it's great. I really do. I have a daughter who's very artsy, and I'm like, go ahead and do your business now. Go ahead and create something that's yours that you
Yeah.
can take ownership of. And I think it's important for our young people not to wait until after they get to college, but if they have a passion and a love for something, go ahead and make it yours.
Mhm.
Go
Yeah.
ahead and create something that's yours, that's authentic, and that you can look back on and be very proud of.
Right.
So I
Definitely.
think that's amazing that he's doing this at this point in time. And as you look at the landscape of our country and our world, I think it's going to be up to the young people to really make the changes that are so sorely needed.
Yeah.
So, my hands off to any young person who's doing it right now. They're not waiting. They understand what their passion is, and they're going after it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, so my next question here, this might be a long-winded question here, but let's see. So obviously, did you ever consider being a coach after your NFL career? And for example, do you think Bill Cowher will come back coaching, or do you think he's done?
Well, to answer that question, I think he's done. I saw Bill when I was with the Arizona Cardinals, and I think he's pretty comfortable in his television role. And it's probably not as taxing for him. He gets to spend a lot of time with his wife, his grown daughters. The schedule is not as brutal as it is as far as being a football coach,
Or
especially on the high level of the NFL. So I think for him, he's not going to come back, and it's a lot of energy. He brought a lot of energy to the table when he was a coach. So I don't really see him spending that kind of energy going back into coaching. But you
hmm,
really never know. You never
yeah,
know. If the right opportunity comes around, he could possibly do it. As far as coaching is concerned, when I finished playing football, I didn't want to really get involved with football. I wanted to see what else I could do. And so I had an opportunity to work at Clemson University on the admission side. And I was an admission manager, recruitment for minority students. And that did me so much good. But the bug did catch me because I started doing these camps kind of on the weekend around the country. And, the love of the game came back. I ended up being a head coach for a Christian school. And then I ended up being a college football coach at FAMU. Then I went on with the Cardinals for 2 years.
yep,
At this point in time, it was great because it got me back involved in the game and really got me to really help young people and help coaches and well help young players because you have such a knowledge and experience that I really feel that whatever your gifts are, they're not for you necessarily, they're for other people.
Right.
So you got to give that back. You just can't hold that knowledge to yourself and die with it without giving it back. And I feel that those years of coaching was great for me. What I'm doing right now is very fulfilling.
or
So I really feel that really everything is about a purpose. And once you find your purpose, and your passion, I think you're in a good way. So at this point in time, I'm there. I got 2 podcasts that I do.
hmm,
I work for a organization that's all about helping the student athlete. And, I feel that at one point in time, I'll be able to help people as far as navigating their lives and doing some speaking, doing some books. So it's a good, I'm at a good period right now in my life.
so yeah, Cam, do you have any questions, Brewing?
Nope, I'm good this
Oh.
time, man. I was curious about his Pro Bowl career, so I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a couple of things for you before I let you go.
Okay.
My next question here. So, what was the experience like coaching in Arizona, and how grateful are you that Bruce Arians gave you the opportunity to coach with him? And obviously, Bruce Arians is now in Tampa, coaching Tom Brady, Gronk, and he has a lot of his team has a lot of expectations to win this year, obviously. But what was it like working with him in Arizona?
Well, I'll tell you what, working with um, BA was an experience. It was a really great experience because he really knows his stuff. And at one point in time, it was doubtful if he ever get a head coaching job. So you have to give kudos to the Arizona Cardinals for taking a chance. And I'm telling you, man, this guy really relates to human beings. He's a good guy. He's a great guy to work for. I guarantee if you ask any coach that worked for him, they don't want to work for anybody else
Yeah.
because he has it in perspective. He does. And I guess he feels that, and I think he probably always felt this way, that he's going to be his authentic self.
Or
And it shows. He going to now, as if you're one of his players now, he going to dog cuss you sometimes now. But he also going to show you a lot of love too.
right.
Mhm.
And that's just like a hard, strict father, man. He's gonna get on you and get on you, but he's gonna also love you too. So I think that's what makes Bruce a very good coach and a very good guy to work for.
Hmm.
And I really like the perspective that you didn't have to stay there all day.
Right.
Like those old stories about coaches got to stay there to the midnight hour. And honestly, at this point in time, when you got technology the way you got it, you don't have to do that. I can understand coaches back in the day when you had to really break down film and all that good stuff. But now you go to the IT guy and you're like, can you give me all the first and tens,
Hmm.
first down and 10 runs? You get back to your desk, it's already there.
Yeah.
So Bruce has it in perspective. He understands guys who have families and say, hey, man, go home to your family. Get your work done, and then you go home to your family. So I think he saw it in a way that was very simple as far as being a coach is concerned. But the guy is a dynamic mind when it comes to offense, and especially with quarterbacks, he really know how to get the most out of them. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And honestly, I hope they win a Super Bowl, especially for him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um. So, has Andy Reid contacted you for a potential on the coaching staff in?
Well, no, honestly, I'm going to be a coach, but it's going to probably be in something totally different than what you normally think a coach is going to be. I'm going to be a different type of coach, and that's cool with me. I'm going to touch people in another way. I loved Andy Reid. I loved playing for Andy Reid. I really did. He really taught me another side of the game about how to prepare without wasting a whole lot of times. One of the things that was really funny about him was during the regular season, we didn't really do any conditioning. When I was with Pittsburgh, we didn't do a whole lot of conditioning, but we did some,
Mhm.
like after practice. And I went to him and I said, Coach Reid, why we don't really do a lot of conditioning? He said, Levon, you do the conditioning in practice. He said, we go to every period and we practice with a purpose, and you practice like you're going to play.
Right.
So
Yeah.
therefore, there's no reason for a professional team to be running wind sprints after practice. Plus, I want to save you for Sundays. Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was like, that is another way of looking at it. It really is. Like you get your conditioning in during practice.
Yeah.
And a lot of coaches would never probably agree to that. But it's true, especially nowadays. These guys
Right.
work out so hard, they work out so long, and they have these trainers. So as a coach, you just got to manage them. You want them ready for Sunday,
Yeah.
So to run them in the ground all week long is going to be counterproductive to what you want. So I thought he was really smart in that way that he understood I'm gonna get the most out of you in practice. So when you go to the game, you're already trained to do what you do.
Right.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. So before I get to the last thing, thoughts on my Cowboys this year?
What about your Cowboys?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want me to give you some hope, or you want me to be
Yeah.
realistic? No, I think the Cowboys are gonna be good too. I really do. They got all the
Mike
weapons that
McCarthy. Yeah.
they got all the weapons there. I think they got a coach that has been a winning coach, done a lot at Green Bay. And they got the offensive line. They got Elliott, running backs, one of the best running backs in the league. It'd be interesting to see if Dallas can keep their poise. And I think that's been the thing. I think it hasn't been a talent thing.
Hmm.
I think the defense needs to improve. I think the guys who are 5 stars that you're paying all this money to, they got to step it up a little bit
Right.
more. But if they do that, they got a shot. They really do. They have a shot to go all the way.
Hmm.
So see, hey, I gave you some. I gave you some hope there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
don't get mad after the first game.
you. So the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers?
Yeah, we just really appreciate what they do because they're in constant danger all the time.
Hmm.
If you really think about it. But that's the medical oath that you have to take, and to be brave like that, especially when we don't really know everything about this virus. We don't quite understand. I can imagine it was like the flu when the flu first came out. You didn't know anything about it, didn't know how to treat it, but people are dying all the time. So yeah, you got to give them a lot of credit, and you pray for them that their health and their well being is also well. So yeah, I just want to give a shout out to all the medical professions that really help us to stay healthy. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So well said, Levon Kirkland. Thank you for joining us today on the podcast and our hour podcast. And thank you, Cantly, for joining this interview too. I'll be posting this on all social media formats. Obviously, Levon Kirkland, former NFL player, two-time Pro Bowl. Again, thank you. You and your family stay safe, and you guys have a great weekend.
All right, you guys
Yeah.
take care, and
You guys have a good one.
anytime you need me, just let me know, man.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I'll hook you
Good.
up.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
Good talking to you guys.
Yeah, great talking to
Yes,
you
sir.
too, sir.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
All
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Bye, guys.